Daniel Harper stood in the grand chamber of the Galactic Council and felt his patience running thin. For 3 long months he had come to this place every single day. For 3 long months he had listened to the alien delegates mock his species and dismiss every proposal humanity made. Today was supposed to be different. Today the council would vote on whether humans deserve the same trade rights as other species. The chamber was enormous, built to accommodate dozens of different alien races. Some delegates floated in tanks of liquid, others perched on heated rocks. A few hung from the ceiling like bats. Daniel stood at the center podium, a small human figure surrounded by beings who saw him as nothing more than a child playing at politics. Katie Wells stood behind him, her tablet ready to record everything. She was his aide, and had been with him since the beginning of these talks. She had watched the insults pile up just as he had. She had remained professional even when the aliens laughed at human technology and called their ships primitive toys. The vote was called. One by one, the alien delegates made their choice. The Zelthani representative, a massive insect-like creature with 4 arms and compound eyes, voted against the human proposal. So did the Vorlax delegate, a being with 6 tentacles and skin that changed colors. So did the Hinari, the Korthan, and the Dravix. Every single delegate voted no, but Daniel had expected this, but it still hurt. The proposal was simple. Humanity wanted protection for their trade ships traveling through space. Other species had these protections. Human merchants did not. Instead, the council had just voted to give those same protections to the Vorlax Consortium, allowing them to travel freely through human space without asking permission first. The Zelthani delegate made a clicking sound that the translation device rendered as laughter. Your species asks for equal treatment. You who barely know how to travel between stars, you should be grateful we allow you in this chamber at all. Daniel felt his hands ball into fists. He forced them to relax. Showing anger would only prove their point that humans were too emotional for galactic politics. The Vorlax delegate, Ambassador Thexinar, waved several of his tentacles in a dismissive gesture. Humans are like children. You act without thinking. You let feelings guide your choices instead of logic. This is why you cannot be trusted with real responsibility. Katie touched Daniel's arm gently, a reminder to stay calm. But Daniel had heard enough. For 3 months he had swallowed his pride. For 3 months he had tried to work with beings who saw him as inferior. Not anymore. This council has made its position very clear, Daniel said. His voice was quiet but firm. Humanity came here seeking partnership. We offered to share our technology. We offered our resources. We offered friendship. What did we get in return? Insults, mockery, dismissal. The chamber grew quiet. The delegates were not used to humans speaking so directly. You call us emotional, Daniel continued. You say we act without thinking. But who is really being foolish here? You refuse to work with us, yet you expect to use our space as your highway. You want our resources but give us no voice in how they are used. You demand respect but show none in return. Ambassador Thexinar started to speak, but Daniel raised his hand. I am not finished. For 3 months I have tried to reason with you. I have followed your protocols. I have been patient. But patience has limits. You have shown us that this council does not want humans as partners. You want us as servants. That is something we will never accept. Daniel began gathering his documents from the podium. Katie immediately understood what he was doing and started packing her equipment. Ambassador Harper, the Hinari mediator, said, Elder Sorbeth was a crystalline being who glowed with soft blue light. You cannot simply leave. There are procedures that must be followed. There are protocols. Protocols. Daniel laughed, but there was no humor in it. You mean the same protocols you ignored when you gave our trade routes to the Vorlax without consulting us? Those protocols? Elder Sorbeth's glow dimmed slightly. The council votes according to established rules. Rules that you created to benefit yourselves, Katie said. It was rare for her to speak during these sessions, but she could not stay silent anymore. Every rule in this chamber is designed to keep younger species like humanity in their place. You talk about wisdom and experience, but all we see is arrogance. The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted in dozens of languages. The translation devices struggled to keep up with the chaos. Some aliens were outraged. Others seemed confused. A few appeared worried. Daniel waited for the noise to die down. When it finally did, he made his announcement. Effective immediately, humanity withdraws from these peace talks. We also withdraw from all Galactic Council programs, initiatives, and agreements. You wanted to know if we would remain as junior members with no real voice? The answer is no. You are making a mistake, the Zelthani delegate said. Without Council protection, humanity will be vulnerable. Pirates will attack your ships. Other species will take your colonies. You need us, Daniel smiled. Do we, or do you need us? I guess we will all find out. He turned and walked toward the exit. Katie followed close behind. Their footsteps echoed in the suddenly silent chamber. No one tried to stop them. The delegates were too shocked to react. At the docking bay, Captain Ryan Mitchell was waiting with the Earth corvette Endeavour. He was young for a captain, only 32, but he was good at his job. He straightened to attention when he saw Daniel and Katie approaching. Sir, are we leaving? Ryan asked. Yes, Captain. Take us home. Humanity has better things to do than waste time with people who do not respect us. Ryan did not ask questions. He simply nodded and led them aboard the ship. Within minutes, the Endeavour had detached from the Council station and was heading back toward Earth. Daniel sat in his quarters and stared out the window at the stars. He wondered if he had made the right choice. Walking away from the Council was a huge risk. Earth was still relatively new to galactic politics. They had fewer ships than most species. Their technology was less advanced. Without Council protection, they would be on their own. But staying would have been worse. It would have meant accepting permanent second-class status. It would have meant teaching the younger generation of humans that it was okay to be treated as inferior. Daniel could not do that. No human could. Katie entered without knocking. They had worked together long enough that formality was unnecessary. The Council is trying to contact us, she said. 5 different delegates have sent messages. What do they want? They want us to come back. They say we are being rash. They say we are proving their point about humans being too emotional. Daniel shook his head. Of course they do. Ignore the messages. We are done talking to people who do not listen. Katie sat down across from him. Do you think Earth will support this decision? I think Earth is tired of being pushed around. I think every human who has dealt with the Council is tired of being called primitive and stupid. Yes, I think they will support this. They might even celebrate it, Katie smiled. I hope you are right. So do I, Daniel admitted. Because if I'm wrong, I just ended humanity's relationship with every advanced species in the galaxy. The Endeavour continued its journey home. Behind them, the Galactic Council station grew smaller and smaller until it was just another point of light among the stars. Ahead of them lay Earth and whatever future humanity would build without the Council's approval. Daniel did not know what would happen next. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. Humanity would never bow to those who refused to treat them as equals. They would rather stand alone than kneel together. The galaxy was about to learn what humans were truly capable of when pushed too far, and the Galactic Council would soon discover that dismissing Earth had been their biggest mistake. 3 months had passed since Daniel Harper walked out of the Galactic Council chamber. 3 months since humanity had closed its doors to the species that had dismissed them. Now sitting in her office aboard the orbital station Unity, Admiral Lisa Grant was reviewing reports that showed just how much the galaxy was starting to hurt. Lisa was a career military officer who had spent 20 years working her way up through the ranks. She had fought pirates, explored unknown space, and negotiated with hostile aliens, but nothing in her career had prepared her for what was happening now. The galaxy was learning a hard lesson about the cost of arrogance. Commander Jack Price entered her office carrying a datapad. He was her chief of staff and one of the few people she trusted completely. Admiral, the latest numbers are in. 16 alien ships tried to enter human space this week. We turned all of them away, Lisa nodded. The orders had been clear from Earth. No alien vessels were allowed in human territory without explicit permission. No exceptions. No negotiations. The borders were closed. How did they react? About how you would expect. Anger mostly. Some threats. A few tried to bribe the border guards. One Vorlax captain claimed he had an emergency and needed to use our space to reach his homeworld faster. And we told him to go around. It added 3 weeks to his journey. Lisa allowed herself a small smile. Good. Maybe next time they will remember that our space is not their shortcut. The truth was that human space occupied a very strategic position in the galaxy. 3 major trade routes passed through Earth's territory. These routes connected important worlds and saved traders weeks of travel time. For decades, alien ships had used these routes freely, paying nothing and giving nothing in return. Now those routes were closed. The economic impact was already visible. Trade between the three galactic quadrants had slowed to a crawl. Shipping companies were losing money. Merchants were going bankrupt. The Galactic Council had called the situation a crisis. Lisa called it justice. On the planet New Terra, one of humanity's largest colonies, Chief Engineer Rachel Moore was supervising the dismantling of a joint research facility. The facility had been built 5 years ago as a partnership between humans and the Zelthani. It was supposed to represent cooperation between species. Instead, it had become another example of how the Council species used humanity. Rachel was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had spent 3 years working with the Zelthani scientists, sharing human discoveries and helping them solve problems. In return, the Zelthani had stolen several of humanity's best ideas and claimed them as their own. Everything needs to go, Rachel told her team. Every computer, every tool, every piece of equipment. I do not want to leave them so much as a screwdriver. Dr. Peter Cole, her assistant, was carefully disconnecting a quantum processor. The Zelthani ambassador has contacted us again. He is demanding that we honor our agreement and keep the facility open. Rachel's laugh was harsh. Honor our agreement? That is rich coming from them. They had no problem dishonoring the agreement when they stole our graviton compression designs last year. What should I tell him? Tell him to build his own facility, with his own technology, if he can. The reality was that human technology had become more advanced than most people realized. During the 3 months of isolation, Earth scientists had made breakthroughs that would have been impossible under Council rules. The Council had dozens of regulations about what kind of research was allowed. These regulations were supposedly for safety, but everyone knew the truth. They existed to keep younger species from becoming too powerful. Without those regulations, human innovation had exploded. On Earth, President Helen Brooks was meeting with her Security Council. The room was full of the most powerful people in human government. General Stephen Hunt sat to her right, his uniform covered in medals. Secretary of State Linda Martinez sat to her left, her expression worried. Let us start with military readiness, Helen said. General? Stephen pulled up a holographic display. All border stations are fully operational. We have deployed the new barrier satellites around every human colony. Our defense network is stronger than it has ever been. Nothing gets in or out without our knowledge, and our fleet? Growing. The shipyards are working around the clock. We are building new vessels using technologies that the Council had forbidden. The new ships are faster, better armed, and more efficient than anything we have had before. Linda spoke up. We are receiving communications from the Council daily. The Hinari want to talk. The Vorlax are offering trade deals. Even the Zelthani are asking for meetings. After they laughed in Daniel's face? Helen's voice was cold. After they voted to give our space to the Vorlax without asking us? They can wait. Some of them seemed genuinely worried, Linda said. Elder Sorbeth sent a personal message. He said the Council is starting to fall apart without human participation. Then they should have thought of that before treating us like servants. Stephen said, I say we let them suffer. Helen considered this. The question is not whether they deserve to suffer. The question is what is best for humanity, and right now I believe isolation is best. We need time to build our strength. We need time to show the galaxy that we do not need their approval. Around human space, ordinary citizens were adjusting to the new reality. On Mars Station, Dr. Maya Foster led a research team that had just made a major breakthrough in energy generation. The new system could power a city using a fraction of the resources required by older technology. Maya was young for such an important position, only 28, but she was brilliant. Her team had been working on the energy problem for 2 years with little progress. Then humanity had withdrawn from the Council, and suddenly the regulations that had limited their research were gone. We have increased efficiency by 40%, Maya told her team during a celebration in the lab. This technology will change everything. Our colonies will be able to expand faster. Our ships will be able to travel farther. And the best part? We do not have to share it with anyone who does not respect us. Her assistant, a young researcher named Chris Bennett, raised his glass. To human ingenuity, unbound and unstoppable, the team cheered. They knew that their work would have been confiscated by the Council under the old rules. Anything deemed too advanced had to be shared with all species. In practice, this meant that humans did all the work and everyone else reaped the benefits, not anymore. Meanwhile, on the Galactic Council station, the delegates were discovering that running a galaxy without human cooperation was harder than they had expected. The Galactic Defense Network, which protected all Council worlds from pirates and raiders, had relied heavily on human early warning stations. Those stations were now offline, their data no longer being shared. The result was predictable. Pirates were becoming bolder. Raiders were attacking worlds that had been safe for decades. The Council's own defense forces were stretched thin trying to cover the gaps that human stations had filled. "We need to convince the humans to restore the defense network," one delegate argued during a council session. "And how do you propose we do that?" Elder Sorbeth asked. "We treated them terribly. We dismissed their concerns. We mocked their offers of partnership. Why would they help us now?" "Because it is the right thing to do," another delegate said. "The right thing?" Sorbeth's crystalline body flashed with anger. "We did not do the right thing when we had the chance. We cannot expect them to be better than we were." But some delegates were still too proud to admit their mistakes. Ambassador Thexinar of the Vorlax insisted that humans were bluffing. "They will come back. They need the Council more than the Council needs them." Sorbeth looked at the Vorlax with something close to pity. "You still do not understand. The humans do not need us. They never did. We just convinced ourselves they did because it made us feel superior." As the weeks turned into months, the evidence became impossible to ignore. Human colonies were thriving. Human technology was advancing. Human ships were patrolling their borders with confidence. Meanwhile, the Council was struggling with trade disruptions, security problems, and internal disputes. A few species tried to breach human space by force. These attempts ended badly. The new human defense systems were far more effective than anyone had expected. Ships that tried to cross the border without permission found themselves facing weapons that could disable their engines in seconds. One Vorlax merchant captain made the mistake of threatening a human border guard. "You are making a mistake. The Vorlax Consortium has powerful friends. You will regret this." The guard, a young officer named Lieutenant Sarah Cross, simply smiled. "Sir, you have 10 seconds to turn your ship around and leave our space. After that, we will disable your engines and tow you back to the border. Your choice." The captain left. Back on Earth, Daniel Harper had been promoted to Director of External Affairs. He now coordinated all of humanity's interactions with alien species. It was a difficult job, but someone had to do it. Katie Wells, now his Deputy Director, brought him the daily report of contact attempts from the Council. 23 messages today, she said. Most of them asking for meetings. A few asking for humanitarian aid. One asking if we will sell them our new barrier technology. What did you tell them? 6 months after humanity had closed its borders, Daniel Harper was working late in his office when the emergency communication came through. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the image of a Hynari military officer. Daniel recognized him immediately. Commander Velthos was one of the few council officers who had always treated humans with respect. "Director Harper," Velthos said. His crystalline features showed something that looked like fear. "I am contacting you against orders. The Council refuses to acknowledge what I'm about to tell you, but someone must know the truth." Katie Wells, who had been reviewing reports at her desk, immediately activated the secure recording system. Daniel leaned forward. "We are listening, Commander. The Kravix horde has entered Council space. They breached the outer sectors 2 weeks ago. Without your early warning stations, we did not detect them until they had already destroyed 4 colony worlds. The Council is in chaos, but they are too proud to ask for human help." Daniel felt his blood run cold. The Kravix were the nightmare species of the galaxy. They did not conquer worlds. They consumed them. Every living thing, every resource, everything. They left behind only dead rocks floating in space. Humanity had encountered the Kravix once 3 years ago. A single Kravix scout ship had entered human space. The resulting battle had lasted 6 hours and left 2 human vessels badly damaged. But the Kravix ship had been destroyed. After that, both species had avoided each other. "How bad is it?" Katie asked, catastrophic. The Vorlax lost an entire fleet trying to stop them. 37 ships destroyed in less than an hour. The Zelthani have evacuated all their outer colonies. The Kravix are moving toward the core systems, and the Council cannot stop them. Velthos paused. His form dimmed, which Daniel had learned meant distress in Hynari body language. There is something else. We have plotted their trajectory. If they maintain their current course, they will reach human space in approximately 4 months. After the transmission ended, Daniel sat in silence for a long moment. Katie waited, knowing he needed time to think. Contact Admiral Grant, General Hunt, and President Brooks, Daniel finally said. Emergency meeting. 1 hour. The holographic conference room was ready within the hour. President Helen Brooks appeared first, her face showing that she had been woken from sleep. Admiral Lisa Grant joined from her office aboard Unity Station. General Stephen Hunt connected from the Pentagon. Thank you for joining on such short notice, Daniel said. Commander Velthos of the Hinari military just gave us some very bad news. He played the recording. The others watched in silence. When it finished, Helen spoke first. So the Council finally has a problem they cannot ignore, and now they will come begging for our help. The question is whether we give it, Stephen said. They showed us nothing but contempt. They treated us like children. Why should we risk human lives to save them from their own mistakes? Lisa offered a different view. Because we are better than they are. We did not withdraw from the Council because we are petty. We withdrew because we demanded respect. But we are still human, and humans do not abandon people to die, even people who wronged us. There is also a practical consideration, Katie added. If the Kraviks destroy the Council worlds, we will face them alone eventually. Better to stop them now with allies, however ungrateful those allies might be, than face them later by ourselves. Daniel nodded. I agree with both points. But I want to be clear about something. If we do this, we do it on our terms, not as junior partners, not as servants rushing to help their masters. As equals. What do you have in mind? Helen asked. The Council will send an official request for help. They probably already have. When it arrives, we ignore it. We wait until they are desperate enough to ask properly. With respect, with acknowledgement of their mistakes. Only then do we consider helping. Stephen smiled grimly. You want them to beg. No, I want them to treat us as equals. There is a difference. The official request from the Galactic Council arrived the next morning. It was exactly as Daniel had predicted. Formal. Cold. Completely lacking any acknowledgement of how they had treated humanity. The Galactic Council requests the assistance of Earth's military forces in repelling an invasion by the Kraviks horde. Council regulations require all member species to provide aid during galactic emergencies. Katie read it aloud, then looked at Daniel. Member species. We left the Council 6 months ago. Apparently they forgot that detail. Or they are hoping we did. What should I tell them? Nothing. Delete it, sir. If they want our help, they will need to do better than that. Much better. For 3 days there was silence from the Council. Daniel could only imagine the arguments happening in that chamber. Some delegates would be insisting that humans had a duty to help. Others would be too proud to ask properly. A few, like Velthos, would understand what needed to be done. On the 4th day, a new message arrived. This one was different. Elder Sorbeth appeared alone without any other council members present. Director Harper, the Hinari began. I come to you not as a representative of the council, but as someone who must speak the truth. We wronged your people. We treated you as lesser beings. We dismissed your contributions and mocked your offers of friendship. The Kraviks are coming, and it is our own pride that has left us vulnerable. Daniel watched carefully. This was not a formal apology, but it was close. I cannot promise that the entire council has learned this lesson. Some are still too proud. Some still believe humans should help without conditions. But I have learned. I am asking, not demanding, that humanity consider helping us. Not because you owe us anything. You do not, but because you are better than we proved to be. Katie glanced at Daniel. He nodded slowly. Elder Sorbeth, I will present your words to President Brooks. But understand this clearly. If humanity enters this war, it will be as equals, not as subordinates. We will fight alongside the council races, not beneath them. I would expect nothing less, Sorbeth replied, and I would support nothing less. President Brooks called a session of the Global Assembly. Representatives from every human nation and colony gathered to watch her address. My fellow humans, Helen began, the Galactic Council has asked for our help against the Kraviks invasion. Many of you remember how they treated us. You remember the insults. You remember being told we were not good enough to sit at their table. I share your anger. She paused, letting her words sink in. But I also remember who we are. We are humanity. We do not abandon others to destruction, even when they have wronged us. However, we will not return to the council as we left it. We will not accept second-class status. We will not bow to those who consider themselves our betters. Helen outlined humanity's terms: full voting membership on the council, equal representation in all decisions, formal apologies from each species that had dismissed them, and most importantly, a complete restructuring of galactic governance to prevent any species from dominating others. These are our conditions. The council can accept them or they can face the Kravix alone. We will fight this enemy, but we will fight as free people, as equals, as partners. Never again will humanity bow to anyone. The response from human colonies was immediate and overwhelming. 94% supported the decision. The few who opposed did so not because they wanted to help the council, but because they thought humanity should stay isolated no matter what. Admiral Lisa Grant did not wait for formal approval. She began mobilizing the fleet immediately. The shipyards had been busy during the 6 months of isolation. New vessels now filled the orbital stations, ships that incorporated technologies the council had forbidden. Captain Ryan Mitchell, promoted to Commodore, now commanded a battle group of 12 ships. His flagship was the destroyer Defiant, a vessel that would have been illegal under council regulations. It carried weapon systems based on research that humans had been forced to abandon years ago. All ships report ready, Commodore, his communications officer said. Lieutenant Sam Parker was young but reliable. Set course for the neutral zone, Ryan ordered. Let us show the galaxy what humans can do when we are not held back by their rules. On the Galactic Council station, the delegates gathered for an emergency session. They watched their sensors as humanity's fleet appeared at the edge of council space. 12 human ships with more coming behind them. Ambassador Thexanar of the Vorlax stared at the display in shock. They came, after everything we said to them. After everything we did, they actually came. The Zelthani representative, who had lost 3 colony worlds to the Kravix, spoke quietly. We do not deserve this. We do not deserve their help. Elder Sorbeth addressed the council. The humans have sent their terms. They want full membership. They want equal representation. They want apologies. And they want to restructure how the council operates. I move that we accept all their demands. Does anyone here believe we have the right to refuse? There was silence. Even the proudest delegates could not argue. The Kravix were destroying council worlds while they debated. Humanity was offering to help, but only as equals. The vote was called. For the first time in the council's history, every single delegate voted the same way. Yes, humanity would join the council as full equals. The apologies would be delivered. The galaxy would change, but first, there was a war to win. The human fleet arrived at the Viridian system 3 days later. Commodore Ryan Mitchell stood on the bridge of the Defiant and studied the tactical display. What he saw made his stomach tighten. The Kravix armada was massive. Over 300 dark ships filled the space ahead, their hulls seeming to absorb light itself. Sir, we count 317 enemy vessels. Lieutenant Sam Parker reported from his station. Combined human and council forces total 194 ships. So they outnumber us and outgun us, Ryan said calmly. Then we will need to outsmart them. Contact Admiral Grant. Tell her I recommend Protocol Phoenix. Protocol Phoenix was a purely human innovation. During the 6 months of isolation, military researchers had developed a new defensive system. It used rapid deployment barrier satellites combined with graviton compression fields. The result was the ability to create temporary fortress positions in open space. No other species had anything like it. Admiral Lisa Grant received the recommendation aboard her carrier, the Independence. She smiled when she read it. The Kravix had crushed council fleets using the same tactics for decades. They swarmed in overwhelming numbers. But those tactics assumed their enemies would fight in traditional formations. Protocol Phoenix would change everything. Approved, Commodore, she transmitted back. Deploy all barrier satellites. Let us show them what human innovation looks like. The human ships moved into position, small pods launched from their hulls, spreading across space in a carefully planned pattern. To the Kravix, it must have looked like humans were scattering in fear. That was exactly what Lisa wanted them to think. The Kravix fleet advanced. Their ships moved in a swarm formation, hundreds of vessels packed close together. It was intimidating and had broken the will of many council races before the fighting even began. But humans had studied every recorded battle with the Kravix. They knew the weaknesses in that formation. Satellites online in 3, 2, 1, Ryan counted down. Now, the barrier satellites activated. Suddenly, space between the human fleet and the Kravix armada was filled with defensive fields. The fields channeled the advancing enemy ships into narrow corridors, breaking up their swarm formation. What had been an overwhelming wave became a series of smaller groups. Captain Jenny Moore commanded the destroyer Relentless. She was positioned at one of the choke points created by the barrier system. As Kravix ships funneled through the narrow gap, her weapons lit up the darkness. "Target-rich environment," she said with grim satisfaction. "All batteries fire at will." The battle became chaos. Kravix ships found themselves unable to maneuver properly. Their strength had always been their numbers, but the barrier fields negated that advantage. They could only enter the combat zone a few dozen at a time. Meanwhile, the Council fleets were watching in amazement. The Zelthani commander, Admiral Krexith, opened a channel to Lisa. "How are you doing this? We have fought the Kravix for months and never achieved such success." "We studied their tactics and found the weakness," Lisa replied. "They rely on overwhelming force. Take away their ability to concentrate that force, and they become vulnerable. This technology, these barrier satellites, we have nothing like them. That is because the Council banned this research 10 years ago. You said it was too dangerous. We built it anyway after we left." There was a long silence on the other end. "We were fools." "Yes, you were. But we can discuss that later. Right now we have a battle to win." Commander Velthos led his Hynari squadron in coordination with human forces. He had trained his pilots specifically to work with humans over the past few days. Now that training paid off. "Follow the human formation patterns," he ordered his ships. "They know what they are doing. Trust them." The Hynari ships moved in perfect sync with their human counterparts. Together, they targeted Kravix vessels that tried to break through the barrier fields. The coordination was seamless. Velthos found himself filled with admiration. The humans fought with a combination of careful planning and bold execution. They took risks that would have terrified most Council officers, but those risks were calculated. Every move had a purpose. "The humans fight like they have something to prove," one of his pilots said. "No," Velthos corrected. "They fight like they have nothing to prove. They know their worth. We were the ones who needed convincing." Aboard the Defiant, Ryan monitored the entire battle. The barrier system was working better than even the optimistic projections. Kravix ships were being destroyed at a rate of 5 to 1 compared to Allied losses. "Their command ship is breaking formation," Sam reported. "It is pulling back." Ryan studied the display. The Kravix command vessel was enormous, easily 3 times the size of any human ship. It had stayed at the rear of their formation, directing the battle. Now it was retreating. "All ships concentrate fire on the command vessel," Ryan ordered. "If we take it out, their fleet will lose coordination." The combined fleet focused their weapons on the single target. Human ships fired their new graviton compression missiles. Council ships added their plasma cannons. The Kravix command ship's shields flickered under the sustained assault. Jenny Moore pushed her ship forward, closer than any other vessel. "Come on, you ugly thing. Fall apart," her weapons officer looked worried. "Captain, we are in range of their point defense systems." "I know. Keep firing." The Relentless shook as Kravix weapons struck its hull. Alarms blared. But Jenny did not back off. She kept her ship on course, weapons blazing. Then the Kravix command ship's shields failed. The concentrated fire from dozens of Allied vessels poured into its hull. Explosions rippled across its surface. A moment later, the entire ship erupted in a massive detonation that lit up the entire system. "Command ship destroyed," Sam announced. "Enemy fleet is breaking apart." "They are retreating." Across the Allied fleet, celebrations erupted. Ships that had been fighting desperately moments ago suddenly found themselves facing an enemy in full retreat. The Kravix ships that survived were fleeing into deep space. Lisa allowed herself a moment to feel relief before returning to her duties. "All ships cease fire. Do not pursue. We won this battle, but we need to regroup and assess damage." The casualty reports came in over the next hour. 12 Allied ships destroyed, 9 human vessels among them. But compared to what the Kravix had lost, it was a clear victory. Over 150 Kravix ships had been destroyed or disabled. Ryan sat in his command chair and felt exhaustion wash over him. "Sam, send a message to Admiral Grant. Battle successful. Enemy fleet repelled." "Yes, sir." "And sir, we did good today. Ryan smiled. Yes, we did. 3 days later, a ceremony was held aboard Unity Station. President Helen Brooks arrived with a full delegation. Daniel Harper and Katie Wells were there, along with representatives from every human colony. The Galactic Council assembled as well. For the first time since humanity had withdrawn 6 months ago, humans and council members stood in the same room as equals. Elder Sorbeth stepped forward. His crystalline body glowed with an emotion that humans had learned meant humility. We gathered today to acknowledge what should have been acknowledged long ago. Humanity deserves not just a seat at this council, but full partnership in governing our galaxy. We were wrong to treat you as lesser. We were blind to your worth. One by one, the council representatives approached the human delegation. Each offered an apology. Some were genuine, others were grudging. But they all came. The Zelthani representative spoke for his species. We measured worth by age and found ourselves superior. We were wrong. Your innovation saved our worlds. We beg your forgiveness. Ambassador Thexanar of the Vorlax performed a gesture of deep respect with all 6 of his tentacles. We called you too emotional. We said you acted without thinking. But it was emotion that brought you to our aid when cold logic would have let us die. We are sorry. Species after species offered their apologies, some with tears, some with visible reluctance. Daniel Harper accepted each with the same measured dignity. Finally, President Helen Brooks addressed the assembly. Humanity withdrew from this council not in anger but in principle. We refuse to accept a galaxy where some voices mattered more than others. Today marks not our return but the beginning of something new, a galactic order where all species contribute as equals. The formal vote was conducted. Humanity received full council membership with equal authority in all decisions. New protocols were established to prevent any species from dominating others. The Galactic Defense Network was reorganized with human command structures integrated throughout. But the most important change was the new charter. The Viridian Accords, named for the battle that had changed everything. The Accords established principles of mutual respect, shared innovation, and collective defense. Never again would any species be dismissed as unworthy. As the ceremony concluded, Lisa stood with Ryan and watched the assembled fleet through the viewport. Human and alien vessels side by side. We could have let them fall, Ryan said quietly. We could have, Lisa agreed. But then we would not be human, Ryan nodded. That is what makes us worthy of respect. Not our weapons, not our tactics, our character. Across the station, Katie found Elder Sorbeth standing alone looking at Earth through a window. Elder, are you well? The Hinari turned. I am thinking of all the wasted years. Your species? 2 weeks after the ceremony at Unity Station, Daniel Harper sat in his new office aboard the Galactic Council headquarters. The office was larger than his old one, with windows that looked out at the stars. More importantly, it was on the same level as every other council representative's office. No longer were humans relegated to the lower floors. Katie Wells entered carrying 2 cups of coffee. Real Earth coffee, not the synthetic stuff the council provided. The first joint session starts in an hour, she said, handing him a cup. Are you ready? As ready as I will ever be. This is what we fought for. Now we have to prove we deserve it. The council chamber had been redesigned. Instead of the old circular arrangement that placed elder species at the center, the new design had everyone on equal footing. Human delegates sat beside Hinari, Vorlax beside Zeltani. No species was elevated above others. Admiral Lisa Grant attended as humanity's military representative. She wore her dress uniform, every metal polished to perfection. General Stephen Hunt sat beside her, representing Earth's planetary defense forces. President Helen Brooks was there as well, though she would not speak unless necessary. This session was about letting the representatives do their work. Elder Sorbeth called the meeting to order. Welcome to the first session of the Reformed Galactic Council. We begin a new era today, one built on the principles established in the Viridian Accords. All voices will be heard, all species will be respected. The first order of business was restructuring the Galactic Defense Network. The Kravix attack had exposed serious weaknesses in the old system. Those weaknesses needed to be fixed. Daniel stood to present humanity's proposal. The old defense network relied too heavily on centralized control. When the Kravix attacked, the Council could not respond quickly enough. We propose a distributed system where each sector has autonomous response capability. The Zeltani representative, a different one from before, spoke up. That would require sharing command authority with younger species. It would require sharing command authority with all species based on capability, not age, Daniel corrected. Humanity has proven our defensive systems work. The Hinari have proven their early warning technology is excellent. The Vorlax have superior logistics. Each species contributes what they do best. Lisa added her support. The battle at Viridian showed what we can accomplish working together. But it also showed that rigid command structures are a liability. We need flexibility and trust, the vote was called. The proposal passed with 73% support. Not everyone was happy about it, but enough had learned their lesson. On New Terra, Chief Engineer Rachel Moore was working with a team of Zeltani scientists. After the war, the joint research facility had been rebuilt. This time, the partnership was genuine. Dr. Peter Cole worked alongside a Zeltani engineer named Tixall. They were developing improvements to the barrier satellite system that had worked so well against the Kravix. If we adjust the graviton field harmonics, Peter suggested, we could increase the barrier strength by 20%. Tixall studied the calculations. That would work. But it would also increase power consumption. What if we used a rotating activation pattern? 3 satellites active while 3 recharge? That could work. Rachel watched them collaborate with satisfaction. This was what the partnership should have been from the beginning. 2 species working together as equals, each respecting what the other brought to the table. Across human space, similar scenes were playing out. On Mars Station, Dr. Maya Foster was teaching Hinari scientists about the new energy generation system. On Europa Base, human and Vorlax engineers were designing faster cargo ships together. The galaxy was learning to work as a team instead of a hierarchy. But not everyone was happy with the changes. Some of the older council members still believed that age should grant authority. They whispered in private meetings about the danger of giving too much power to young species. Ambassador Thexinar of the Vorlax had changed his views after the battle, but he still heard complaints from others in his government. The humans are too aggressive, one Vorlax official argued during a private communication. They want to change everything too quickly. The humans saved our lives, Thexinar replied firmly. They saved the entire council. If they want changes, they have earned the right to propose them. But they have only been in space for a few decades. We have been traveling the stars for thousands of years. And in those thousands of years, we became arrogant. We forgot that wisdom comes from character, not age. The humans remembered that. I suggest we learn from them before we make the same mistakes again. The official disconnected the call with clear displeasure. Thexinar knew that changing minds would take time. But at least the conversation was happening. Commander Velthos faced similar resistance in the Hinari military. Several senior officers questioned why humans should have equal rank in the Joint Defense Network. They have not earned it through years of service, one admiral argued. Velthos showed them the battle recordings from Viridian. They earned it by doing what we could not. They stopped the Kravix when our fleets failed. That is the only qualification that matters. 3 months after the Reformation, the Galactic Council faced its first major test. A species called the Drenix, who had stayed neutral during the Kravix War, now wanted to join the Council. Under the old system, their application would have been debated for years. The elder species would have examined every aspect of Drenix society, looking for reasons to deny them. Daniel proposed a different approach. We should evaluate them based on a simple question. Will they respect the principles of the Viridian Accords? Will they treat all species as equals? The Drenix ambassadors were brought before the Council. They were asked direct questions about their views on galactic cooperation, shared resources, and mutual defense. The Drenix lead ambassador, a being named Koroth, answered honestly. We have watched the galaxy for many years. We saw how the old council operated and we chose to stay separate. But we see now that things have changed. We see species working together as partners. That is something we want to be part of. The vote was held the same day. The Drenix were accepted as full members. The entire process took 6 hours instead of 6 years. After the session, Elder Sorbeth approached Daniel privately. You are changing the galaxy faster than I expected. Some find it unsettling. Change is always unsettling, Daniel replied. But the alternative is going back to the way things were. I do not think anyone wants that. No. But you should know that there are those who resent human influence. They see you as upstarts who got lucky. Let them think what they want. We are not here to make everyone like us. We are here to make sure everyone is treated fairly. Sorbeth's glow brightened, which meant approval. That is exactly the right attitude. Keep it. On Earth, President Helen Brooks was meeting with her cabinet. The topic was humanity's future in the galactic community. Secretary of State Linda Martinez raised a concern. We are making a lot of changes very quickly. Some species are struggling to keep up. Should we slow down? Helen considered this. Are we changing things because we want power? Or because the changes are necessary? The changes are necessary, General Stephen Hunt said. The old system nearly got everyone killed. If the Kravix had succeeded, the entire galaxy would have fallen. Then we continue, Helen decided. But we need to be smart about it. We push for changes that matter and let go of things that do not. Choose our battles carefully. Back at Unity Station, Admiral Lisa Grant was overseeing the integration of human technology into the Galactic Defense Network. It was a massive project involving hundreds of engineers from dozens of species. Captain Jenny Moore was assigned to lead one of the installation teams. She worked with a mixed crew of humans, Hainari and Zelthani. The barrier satellite goes here, she explained, pointing to a section of space on the holographic display. When it activates, it will cover this entire sector. A Zelthani engineer named Krixoth studied the design. This is elegant, simple but effective. Why did we never think of this? Because your regulations prevented this kind of research, Jenny said bluntly. You were so worried about dangerous weapons that you banned anything that might be useful. We were fools. Yes, you were. But you are learning. That is what matters. 6 months after the Reformation, the Galactic Council held a celebration. It marked 1 year since humanity had withdrawn from the original peace talks. A year since everything had changed. The celebration was held in the same chamber where Daniel had walked out. But the chamber looked completely different now. The old hierarchical seating was gone. In its place was a round table where every species sat as equals. Daniel stood at the center and addressed the assembled delegates. 1 year ago, I walked out of this chamber because humanity was not being treated with respect. Today, I stand here as a full member of a reformed council. This change did not happen because we demanded it. It happened because circumstances forced everyone to see the truth. He paused, looking around the room. We are all stronger together. Human innovation, Hainari wisdom, Vorlax logistics, Zelthani science. Every species has something valuable to contribute. The old council wasted that potential by putting some species above others. The new council will not make that mistake.